thank you all for taking another evening of your time and joining us together. I know I can speak for the Northern Colorado Regional Airport Commission that we're excited about a number of things that are going on at the airport, and we just wanted to share it with the two councils together and to have a conversation. We're making amazing progress, and I want to thank Don Overcash, who also serves on the commission with me, and Steve Adams, who is here, and Darren Atterbury, and Jerry Scootsberry. Um, and I don't see anybody else from the commission at this point. They might be joining us. But we have a couple of things that will be coming to our councils as per our agreement with each other. But also, we thought it would be useful to have a broader presentation about a number of the issues going on and the projects being completed and so forth, such that we can join in this in a conversation together. So, in terms of introductions, I'm going to introduce the Fort Collins City Council members here, and if you could just wave, I know your cameras are on. So, Ross Kniff, there's Ross, and Kristen Stevens, our Mayor Pro Tem, and Susan Dukowski, she's District 1, and Julie Pignataro. There's Julie. And then joining us about 30 minutes is Emily Gargoyle. She's our District 6, and Ken Summers for District 3 won't be making it tonight. So with that, and also on behalf of the commission, I'll introduce Jerry Scootsberry. There he is, having a swallow, and then Darren and Steve Adams, our two city managers. So thank you. And Mayor Marsh, okay if I turn it over to you to introduce your council members?
Sure, Wade. I can't see all the screens. So Loveland Mayor Jackie Marsh. I know Mayor Pro Tem Don Overcash is there. And as you said, he's on the Airport Commission. Councilor Dave Clark, Councilor Rob Malloy. I haven't seen Councilwoman Kathy Wright or Andrea, but you might see them and I can't.
Okay. Well, and those are the ones I had written down. And also, we have our airport director here, Jason Lacone, and we also have Sean Batmer. She's here that keeps us all in line with the commission. So with that, with introductions, and like to now turn it over to our Chief Sabota, and I also see Chief Ticer on as well. And so to talk about Northern Colorado Law Enforcement Training Center update. And with that, Chief Sabota.
Good evening, mayors, members of City Council, airport commissioners. I know we have staff from Loveland and Fort Collins. As you said, Mayor, Chief Ticer is also on the call. This was meant to just be a brief update. We've got about 5 slides we're going to go through and then open it up for any questions that anyone may have. But we are super excited to be here tonight to talk about this. And first and foremost, I really just want to say thank you to everyone on the call for the manner in which you all went about this. I've been telling people regularly, I've been able to brag a lot about this because I really had nothing to do with getting us to this point. And so then it doesn't look like it's self-serving. I inherited this project when I came. I've been here for 2 years, and Chief Ticer carried the ball with Chief Hutto prior to me and Chief Jones in the interim. And just so much staff has gone into working so hard to get us to this point. So first and foremost, I just really want to say thank you so much to everyone for just thinking so forward at a time where police training is so needed and is questioned regularly. We all now have been thinking about this for years and years. So it's not a knee jerk, wow, we got to get this done. I think it's such a great program that's strong for the officers. Regionalization is so important, working together, but then also for the taxpayers. Each of us didn't have to go out and build our own or work on this. So you all know that, but I just really wanted to say, kind of coming from the outside in, I'm very appreciative that I inherited this, and really just want to say thank you, because you all were some really forward thinkers to get us to this point. So again, I probably should have said at the beginning, I'm Jeff Swoboda, the police chief in Fort Collins, and we've got about 5 slides we're going to go with. So I am going to walk us through these slides. I'm going to share my screen here.
And while you're doing that, Chief, I'd just like to point out that Councilor Kathy Wright has joined us, as well as Andrea Sampson. So welcome to you too.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to check, can you see the screen?
We're looking good.
All righty. This here is just to give a visual of where we are at today. Actually, just looking out just a couple of months, as you'll see in December, we are planning to have the building interior complete, the fire range interior will be complete, and the commissioning system. So the track, which I'll get to in a minute, is already up and running. I know some of you have already taken a tour and checked it out, but both ourselves and Loveland have both utilized the track for both our motors, and we're getting a variety of other training that's coming in with our vehicles, and it's just already being just the talk of not only our towns, but across the state. So we are super excited about where we're at. So come January, we're going to be finishing up some of the things that weren't done there in December. I'm not going to walk through each one of these, but you can see where we'll be at to be completely done and through the punch list by February. Again, this kind of goes through the current work that's coming up, or that's going on, and some of the upcoming work that still needs to be gone through. Moving on, this is just a picture, obviously beautiful. This picture will sell itself for people who want to come out and train. It's an amazing property. The track that's 1.4 miles is just really going to be helping us. We're planning some night driving right now. So many of our police calls involve officers having to drive in a priority response. And many officers are killed in the line of duty with traffic crashes. So driving is a big part of what we do. So we're really excited about that. And then the 5.5 acre skills pad, extremely versatile piece of property that we're going to be able to utilize for a variety of reasons. And so we are really excited about this. So that's one picture. This here is really just to show the exterior finishes. The building is up and we are closing everything in. Landscaping and lighting is coming up as well. Again, if you haven't seen it, we're giving tours out there regularly along with Loveland. And when I say we're doing it and Loveland's doing it, we're out there together all the time. And our project managers are working very well together. Chief Ticer and I are talking regularly as well. So this is truly a combined effort by everyone. Just a couple more pictures here. We're looking at the interior drywall. It's complete, as well as window installation with some of those amazing views looking out up over the mountains. To me, they're still mountains. I know to many of you, there are foothills. And then finally, this here is just the inside. That range is, as you can see, a large range in that we will be able to be driving our vehicles in there. So much as about an officer's response in the past, we'd have to really kind of categorize things. We would shoot and we would drive and we would do defensive tactics. This new space is really going to be allow us to roll through many of those right in a row, as it would happen on the street. The officer may be driving, then get out, and maybe have to run on foot, and then engage in physical fitness. And so all of these things are going to be able to incorporate it in one location. So as you can see, we are moving along. It is looking amazing, and once again, this is just meant to be a big thank you today and to show you the progress. But we are wide open for questions. We know you have other things on the agenda as well. But again, publicly, just want to say thanks to Chief Ticer for his foresight in all of this and kind of shepherding to this point where we're at today. Because we're already out there now, and we're going to be inside training in the next couple months. So, without further ado, maybe I would just turn it over to Chief Ticer if I skipped anything or anything you would like to add, Chief.
Thanks, Chief, and it's great to have this partnership. Chief Swoboda is truly talking about what the vision was here was a 50-50 partnership with the city of Loveland and the city of Fort Collins, and that's come to fruition at both his level and my level. But we also, he mentioned, we've got a couple staff members that are working together on this, and I think it's really important to acknowledge those two today, Lieutenant Kinsman from Fort Collins Police Services and Sergeant Brandon Johnson from Loveland. They are the two men that are boots on the ground out there. They're doing things that they never thought they would be doing in policing, such as picking out colors and carpet and all of that. So they're learning a lot, but they're really leading both of our groups out there. Chief, I appreciate the nice comments about me, but I also inherited this from Chief Hecker. And that shows you how far back this project's been going. It's been in the plans for many, many years, but now because, as Jeff said, the support that we have on this Zoom and our communities on this true 50-50 partnership, we're just about there. You saw the timeline. We're almost there. We'll get it. We're staying within budget. And that was a promise that Chief Hutto and I made to you over at the ranch about 4 years ago or so. We said we're going to stay within budget. And as a matter of fact, we found some additional dollars to help out with a $1 million DOLA grant that really paid for most of that concrete out there on that 5.5 acre skills pad. So we're very excited about it. And I did want to acknowledge Mayor Troxel and Mayor Marsh there. Thank you for both your support and our city councils and commissioners and staff that are on here. We truly couldn't do it without you. But Jeff's right. When we've had this in-service training going on that track for the last month or so with both his agency and mine, and there has been visits out there from other larger organizations in law enforcement in this region coming out here, and they are wide-eyed. So that transitions in the last part of my brief, which is we are in final background stages with our training center manager, and we had to plan. We plan to have out there at the facility here at the end of November. And Councilor Clark, I know this is really important to you as well as others. That one of the big charges of that manager's job will be bringing in additional law enforcement to train out there. So there will be some return on investment down the road. That's going to be real important. But from us as law enforcement, having the ability to train together with the two large organizations here in this county, Fort Collins and Loveland, and have the other agencies participate. We know when we have major incidents that happen, those officers on the street, it might be a Fort Collins officer, a Larimer deputy, a state trooper, a Windsor police officer, Estes Park police officer. We're going to have this comfort level that they've been training together and they understand tactics together, and we can be seamless in how we go about business. And that is going to be good for our community and safe for our officers. So we're very excited about it. The drywall's up in there right now, and every time I go over there, there's something new. So promise we will get some great tours for everybody on the Zoom. And I've got a lot of other promises out there too, but you're the first promises. We'll get out there for shooting and driving and all that really important work that the officers do. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for your leadership and partnership.
Well, thank you to our two chiefs. And I'd just like to, you said 4 years ago, it seems, like it was yesterday, but being out at the ranch, and I remember Dave Clark making, make sure it's under 18 million. And I think you've delivered on all those things. And we're so fortunate now with the fires and how with our emergency management offices, and we're continually working together on so many things. And this is just a great example of our two communities working together towards an outcome that not only benefits our communities, but can also service Northern Colorado. So any comments from either council? Dave, go ahead, Dave.
Let me get unmuted. So yeah, I'll just chime in and say thanks to everybody who's been part of this project for the last several years. And it's come along quite a ways and met the goals like Chief Ticer said. So I really appreciate that. And he mentioned, other people coming out there. I was out there a few weeks ago, and while I was there, there was a police force from, I don't know, Broomfield or something like that. Can't remember, Chief, who that was from, but they were out there looking at it. And so it is a very state-of-the-art facility that other people are looking at. And back on the comments that Chief made when we put this together, this is a facility that's been built by taxpayer dollars from Fort Collins and Loveland jointly. And there's other communities in this state who want to use that because currently they go to other facilities and pay to do that. So my only comment was not to make money on it, but to simply get some investment back for the people that are going to use it, because it's our taxpayer dollars that have built that, and other people ought to pay their share when they come and do that as well. So I know Chief has got, they're working on getting a site manager there that's going to manage that and make sure it works for everybody. So I really look for some good things there. And we do have a jewel up here in this area. So thanks to all.
Any other council members? Again, thank you for the presentation, and we look forward to having those tours and look forward to the great training and opportunity that provides to our respective police services. So thank you. With that, we're going to move on to the Northern Colorado Regional Airport, various projects and events that are coming up. And on behalf of the commission, this is, as I mentioned earlier, a real honor to present this to both councils. So with that, Jason, why don't you start off with the 2021 Air Show and the plans there?
Thank you, Mayor. Sharing my screen so that everybody can see. Are you able to see my screen here?
Looks good.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone, mayors, city council members. It's my pleasure to be in front of you today to talk about the airport. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jason Lacone. I'm the airport director. Been here for almost 10 years now, and really excited to be in front of you all today with this very special joint city council meeting that's focused on the airport and the law enforcement training center that's being built on the airport. So tonight I'm going to be sharing some information on some key issues and areas that the airport's been spending a pretty considerable effort on. Much of the recent work really focused on planning in current and future projects, which will really help set the foundation for us as an airport to support Northern Colorado's bright future. Right now, the airport's supporting many of the aircraft that are converging on the multiple wildfires. It's been an interesting day so far, watching the multiple aircraft that have been coming and going out of here. Fighting those fires. So we hope that, the weather cooperates a little bit more and those wildfires are able to come under control with some of the help that the airport's providing as part of that effort. So as the mayor mentioned, the first item that I'll be sharing information on is a brief on a preliminary planning for an air show event that's currently scheduled for October 16th and 17th of next year. Let me advance to that slide. So the airport and the cities are working with a professional air show producer and promotion company called Air Show Network. They've been involved in the air show business since 1983 and have over 500 events under their belt. The company will be providing all of the upfront planning and coordination costs and preparing for a preliminary meeting with the headlining performing team, which has been announced as the United States Navy Blue Angels. This will be a very exciting year for the Blue Angels as they are acquiring all new aircraft, transitioning from, right now they're using the A model of the FA-18 Hornet and transitioning into the F-18 Super Hornet, which is a much larger version of the aircraft that the Blue Angels began flying way back in 1986. So this will be the first year for that new aircraft that they'll be flying. Traffic and emergency management meetings will start beginning of next year. And we'll start including many of the public officials from the various local entities, including Larimer County, Fort Collins, Loveland, and the emergency service providers. Just want to point out that the impact of the pandemic are really too soon right now to predict the status of the event. So planning is still moving forward, where a decision to postpone the event will take place likely no later than in the late spring. So that means that we'll be able to use all of our planning efforts for a future event if the event does not go as planned and will be shelved for a future date to be determined. Right now, a lot of the 2020 air show events are being canceled due to COVID, and those events are being rescheduled for 2 years later. So that would be the same trajectory that we'd expect if we do get a cancellation next year due to COVID. However, we're still moving forward. We're really excited about this potential to host. The last event that occurred of this size and nature was actually with the Blue Angels back in 2003. And we're working to utilize a lot of the lessons that were learned from that event to apply to this one to make it better. There's been a lot of infrastructure improvements in and around the airport and the corridor. So we hope that as a result of that and the other things that are happening in Northern Colorado, this will be a really exciting time for the communities. And with that, Mayor, that's all I have for the air show.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. And with that, some might ask why an air show. And as we've discussed as commission, I'd just like to recognize all the commission. So Tom Fleming serves as vice chair, and he's a Fort Collins appointee. Don Overcash, as well as Darren Atterbury. Kurt Bergner is a Loveland appointee. Steve Adams and Jerry Scootsberry is a jointly appointed commissioner. And our conversations at the commission, it's really to help promote the airport. A lot of people drive by it, but they may not even know it exists. And with that, it's an opportunity to promote. And then also, it's just great, to have the Navy, U.S. Navy Blue Angels perform as well as others. And anyway, any questions, conversation, discussion by the council members from either city? Thank you, Jason. And with that, why don't we move on to our next item is remote air tower controller, air traffic controller tower. Exciting, another exciting project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item that I'd like to provide an update on is something that we've talked about quite a bit in the past and not so distant past. It's the Innovative Remote Air Traffic Control Tower project. It's a joint project between the FAA, CDOT Aeronautics, Sea Ridge Technologies, and the airport. The Colorado Department of Transportation Division of Aeronautics was the resource that provided a lot of the seed money for the ability for the system to be installed and tested on our airport, something that they hope will be approved and selected for the possibility to expand at other airports in the Colorado region. Colorado has 74 airports, and of them, there's only 9 that have air traffic control towers. So this is going to be a catalytic system that could provide air traffic control at other airports, especially the mountain airports that see a lot of seasonal demand. So what I'm going to share to you today is really an overview about the project, some of the impacts that we've seen as it relates to the pandemic and how we're planning to move forward. We have some recent news this week that was shared, or actually last week that was shared regarding the FAA approving the airport for eligibility into the federal contract tower program. This program is something that provides resources to air traffic control towers that would be essentially this system at our airport. And what that means is it provides approximately $750,000 annually to the cities to cover all the personnel and equipment costs to operate the system. So this is a very big deal for us. A lot of great news is coming out of that, and a tremendous milestone and achievement that was made here recently. So just a little bit about the background. The airport did not have an air traffic control tower or air traffic control prior to March 16th of this year, when the remote tower project started providing air traffic control services as part of the preliminary testing of this remote tower project. Air traffic control towers are not something that are common, as I mentioned. There are only 9 in the state that we have 74 public use airports. The airport's really been planning for this tower for many years. One of the biggest challenges for us was to obtain the millions of dollars needed to construct such a facility. Fortunately, an idea back in 2010 and 2011 was created to explore the use of using potential technology to replace the costly, unique structure in the roads and utilities that might be needed to support it from a traditional tower. For reference, the tower in Broomfield, Colorado, that was built in 2012 cost $24 million. And there's a tower at the newly named Colorado Air and Spaceport in Watkins, just east of Denver International. That was built at a cost of $7 million in 2005. Many of those towers were constructed through the use of congressional earmarks, such as the one at the Colorado Air and Spaceport. So here's a brief timeline overview of some of the milestones that were achieved as part of the project. We've been involved as an airport since about 2011, just talking with the state of Colorado on the potential of what this could bring to our airport and others. In 2014, the project was approved by the Colorado Department of Transportation, and $8.8 million was provided to seed this system. So at that time, the FAA became a partner with the Colorado Department of Transportation to work jointly on the development of this remote tower system. And in October of 2015, our airport was selected and announced as the Colorado test site. So August of 2016 is when the FAA selected Sea Ridge Technologies. They're a Canadian firm that's provided all of the technological components for the system and the software, which is a really critical piece of this. And that started to be installed at the airport in August of 2018. So From 2018 until November of 2019 was when the system was actually installed and deployed at the airport. So the end of last year is where the system optimization and initial testing really began. So just a quick overview of the system. We have 31 total cameras, all mounted up high on 3 masts. We have a system where the cameras display images in a facility where air traffic controllers sit and 3 controller workstations. There's a lot of redundancy in this system. It's all closed loop on the airport. All the data is provided to a facility that's located on site. And we have a lot of redundancies and backups that ensure that if this system were to be impacted by a power surge or a power fluctuation, that we have adequate backup systems in place to continue its operation. Here's just a quick map of the airport where some of these systems have been deployed. We've got 2 end masts that have a number of cameras mounted on them, located on either side of the primary runway at the airport. We also have a center camera mast that really replicates what that traditional air traffic control tower would see, with cameras that are set up to see 360 degrees all the way around. Also, there's a red box there that I'll close up in on the next slide, and you'll see the locations there on the picture to the left, where we currently have the remote tower control facility located and a mobile air traffic control tower. So in order for us to test and have redundancies, we have a mobile air traffic control tower currently deployed, and you'll see right there to the right-hand side is where the controllers are currently sitting and controlling air traffic since March of this year. I'll zoom into where the control facility here on the next slide, and this gives you a view of what the remote tower system, as it looks like today, looks like. You have 3 controller workstations, that 360 degree view video wall, and a number of tools and resources for air traffic controllers to really enhance what you're not able to see using cameras and display screens. There's no alternative to the human eye, so to replicate that on video, it really reduces the amount of detail that you can see. So what's been done is a lot of other useful tools have been incorporated into the system, such as pan, tilt, zoom cameras, radar systems, weather information, and other things that really enhance the ability for controllers to see what's going on, to verify that the runways are clear so that they can clear traffic to land or take off, and understand where other traffic is in the airspace so that they can safely sequence in traffic both inbound and outbound. So there's a lot of different components that are all playing together in this display screen. You can kind of see some of that on this picture, but a lot of great technology at the fingertips of the controllers that will be utilizing this system. Now that you've seen kind of what that system installation looks like, we're really anxiously awaiting right now the start of testing to begin. The following slide shows the timeline kind of looking forward from now and ultimately to when we anticipate the remote tower system to be certified by the FAA. Our phase 1, which was slated to begin in April of this year, has been delayed due to COVID. We have the FAA folks from Washington, D.C. and really all over the United States that were going to come in and provide a lot of review, testing, and subject matter expertise to allow us the ability to start using the remote tower system, getting out of that mobile tower into the remote tower system. So, we're hopeful that that delay won't take too much longer, but we are working right now to find ways that we might be able to provide data back to those folks with the project team in Washington, D.C. to allow us to continue moving forward. I'd like to say that, we're really looking at, a 2-year process from right now, and hopefully the pandemic will subside and we can start that phase 1 testing and safety risk management. There's a lot of review that goes into any change to the national airspace system. As you can imagine, air traffic control is a very safety conscious effort, and any change to it must really satisfy a gauntlet of tests and certification and safety review. So, that's why the system will take approximately 2 years to fully vet, and most of that time really just using it to try to figure out where the gaps are and how contingency planning can be made to allow the system to continue to operate if it does have a failure of a camera or certain types of things that you can plan for and put into an operations manual. So with that, I think that really wraps up my part of this. I think that there's something that we do have a lot of tremendous support for by the airport users, the businesses that operate aircraft here, and many other current and potential future users of the airport. So we also have a lot of great support from the cities and the Airport Commission on this project as well. I'm confident that we're going to continue moving forward. There's been quite a bit of infrastructure installed here. The equipment alone was about $2.5 million that the FAA and CDOT worked to put in. The airport is providing some in-kind type services for the use of the facility and some other staffing. So we are also a contributor to this, but not at the level that FAA and CDOT are with their financial contributions. So very excited about this project, and we hope that we're able to continue toward the path of the goal of certification in 2022, early 2023.
Thank you, Jason. And just to add, we've had great support from all of our federal delegation on this, both of our senators and our congressperson, and this is really always been a front of mind endeavor, and particularly Senator Gardner with his position on the Commerce Committee has to actually the remote tower system and talking to the FAA Administrator Dixon. So, we're so fortunate to be at this point with this remote tower and the work that's gone into it, as you can see, for many years. And with that, any discussion, any questions from any of the counselors? Yeah, Kristen.
Thanks. Well, thanks, Jason, for the presentation. And I, for one, am really excited to see this. We've been advocating at the federal level for funding and ongoing funding for this for years. So it's good to finally see something more than a mock-up. As you're advocating for something that's kind of not in your realm and kind of hard to envision. So it's really great to see this, getting off the ground, so to speak. And I'm excited about the possibilities. I just have a couple questions. One of them was that at one point, my understanding was this would be able to be used by multiple airports, so that it would be something that could benefit like other smaller airports. Is that still the case? And is that something that's being looked at as we kind of move through this certification program?
So the answer to that question is yes. There will be a potential to have this system be co-located with other airport systems that are similar, so that there could be some economies of scale driven by a single facility operating multiple airports throughout the state or a certain region. They're already doing some of this right now out in Sweden, where they're operating airports over 130 miles away or kilometers away, I think. So, this really does have the potential to really combine some of that, and really saves, not only space and other things, but, really the ultimate thing that this boils down to is enough bandwidth. So the system was designed so that it doesn't, take an enormous amount of bandwidth, so that data portability remains. And then also the concerns about cybersecurity as well. So, those are some things that will have to be addressed as those other airports can combine together to have that single operating facility. So for right now, our airport has everything on site and in one location, but there certainly could be the potential that others might come online and want to co-locate in a single facility.
Thanks. Well, I'm so excited that our airport's embracing this innovation and that we're a leader in this space. I think that's just fantastic. So thank you to you and the entire board that's made this a possibility. I think it's really exciting. I guess one last question I have is, what does ongoing funding look like? Are we fairly confident that kind of continues into the future for this program? And or how much do we need, or is it self-sustaining in any kind of way?
That's a great question, and we've, as the mayor alluded to, have had some really great support from our congressional and senator representatives here locally, and we've been able to have some successes, most notably with one of the last FAA reauthorization bills. It included language that requires the FAA to test and evaluate up to 6 remote tower sites, where we are officially, one of those sites. So there is another site in Leesburg, Virginia, that's also being tested as well using a different system, although similar but different. So, we are actually a federal project right now. So having that support is critical. It's currently paying for the air traffic control at the airport, which has really been helpful, especially right now with a lot of the wildfire activities and flight training activities from some of the users here at the airport. So, it's the analogy that I use is that, it's really kind of going from a 4-way stop sign to a traffic light. Having air traffic control, really provides that critical second set of eyes on the ground, providing pilots with useful information, when you get into this kind of crowded environment at an airport.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
A pleasure.
Other council members, and you're on 2 screens with a shared presentation. Don, go ahead, please. Don?
Yeah, Kristen, thanks for that question regarding funding. I was just thinking this past week of seeing if the board would give Jason a new nickname. I think Leprechaun might be good because this guy has a way of finding money at the end of the rainbow and bringing it back to Loveland throughout the last year or two, several years. So funding is always a consideration of the commission because it's funded through the cities and that, but Jason's done a fantastic job of finding that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's illustrated a couple of times this year. So I think that's something we really want to be able to make our council members and our citizens aware of, that we have an economic engine out there that's really revving and ready to go. And I think the steps are all being put in place. And when we see the master capital improvement plan over the next few years later tonight, I think that'll really illustrate that as well, the great work that's being done by our airport staff.
Thank you, Don. I just want to recognize that Vice Chair Tom Fleming has joined us, as well as Councilor John Fogel. So thanks for joining us. Any other questions from the council members? I'd just also like to point out, we didn't point out this with the police training facility, but for the city of Fort Collins, and I believe this is true for Loveland as well, that we are now in the first year of where the airport is not being subsidized out of general fund. At least it's true by Fort Collins, but it is being supported by the operational support for the police training center. And so that's a milestone year as well, when the funding from our 2 cities are really for the functional purpose of the training facility, and not just general fund dollars in support of the airport. So that's a thank you to both councils and our police services from both our communities, where we're now supporting it through a great facility as that police training facility. Any other comments on this item? Thank you, Jason. And with that, we'll go to our next item, which is the airport terminal building replacement, or it's more than a replacement, but Jason, why don't you kick this one off?
Thanks, Mayor. And good point. It isn't just a replacement. There's a lot more to it. And, this is something that I think is one of the highest priorities for the airport, replacing some of the infrastructure that we have that was either temporary in nature or really not built to accommodate the current and future projected demand. It's really, in its current state, not a facility that's reflected with the values and the vision of the cities as a gateway to our region and our cities. The airport terminal building was something that we currently operate as a facility that was really designed to accommodate smaller aircraft. It was constructed back in 1989, providing support for a small commuter flight that was going back and forth from the then Denver Stapleton Airport with up to 19 passengers. And really since this time, the airport's really evolved, air travel's evolved, and through this evolution, there's been a trend where some of the larger aircraft has replaced smaller, more frequent flights at smaller airports. So if everybody recalls, during the years 2003 to 2012, the airport supported Allegiant Airlines using 166 passenger aircraft. And obviously it was a bit of a challenge to do that with the existing facilities being what they are. So as a result of that, there's been not only that change, but Northern Colorado is changing. Air industry in Northern Colorado, since that previous terminal was built, the population since 1990 has doubled. Because of this growth, the demand of air travel has also increased. We've done some pretty thorough market analysis, and what that shows is that this trend of the population also is desiring air travel. And the Northern Colorado region represents almost 20% of Denver's originating passengers, which is pretty tremendous. It's Northern Colorado is now at the same level as Colorado Springs from a population and demographics base and air travel demand base, which is truly phenomenal opportunity to be able to capture. So a new terminal building is something that has been on the radar. It's something that could solve could take advantage of some opportunities from a multimodal perspective, which really aligns with the strategic vision of what the Airport Commission is trying to do and achieve for the airport. So on this slide, you'll see that there is a snippet that I took from our current draft master plan that really shows, the passenger building being looked at and, some of the space that might be required to preserve for future use. And we'll get into this once we talk about the next item, which is the master plan. But this kind of illustrates, what we're doing from a planning perspective to, really align ourselves with what the airport needs. Looking at this from the funding side, recently the CARES Act was signed into law in late March. It included $10 billion for public use airports. I reported on this, I believe, to both city councils once this was gained by the airport. But because the FAA is traditionally the entity that provides a lot of the federal grant funding for infrastructure, terminal buildings have really been prioritized quite low than many of the other FAA project lists that really focus tremendously on aviation safety. So runways and taxiways and navigational aids and maintaining existing facilities such as runway overlays and airport lighting. Those are really the top priorities. So without having access to some of those federal funds, the terminal building has always been a challenge for us to find resources to apply towards it. So when the CARES Act funding was announced, there was approximately, like I said, $10 billion of funding provided to airports. The majority of that going to commercially certified airports that met certain criteria. Our airport did, and we're able to obtain just over $16.8 million in federal funding support through the Act. The Airport Commission conducted an extensive evaluation of how to utilize that funding appropriately. And just as a reminder, the funding was allocated for $2 million for operational support over a 4-year time period, and to begin the design work for the new terminal building, which leaves us with about $14.86 million to utilize for that facility. This is a picture of the terminal building and some of the folks that are waiting outside. So, the existing facility is just not adequate for some of the larger aircraft that we currently support. In addition to, even though we don't have scheduled air service, CSU football, for instance, will be flying in and out of here now that the schedule is back on, and all the visiting teams. We've got flights scheduled through about every weekend through the end of the year right now to accommodate that and other charter activities that we utilize that facility for. The terminal selection rationale really aligned with, how can we get the money that was granted to us outside in the community through economic impact and the creation for area jobs. How does it align well with our strategic plan, master plan, and airport policy and vision that the cities have? What can we do to really provide direct benefit to the Northern Colorado residents to utilize the airport? And what can we do to really further reduce any local operational financial support needs that the airport would have from the two cities, especially right now? So, there's also some other criteria that we took into consideration. This money is something that we have to utilize within a 4-year time span. And what this does is it really frees up some future FAA funding for other priority projects, which we'll get into when we get into the financial planning portion of the airport master plan discussion on our next item. So looking ahead, we're looking at beginning actual terminal design next month. We have a team that's been organized, including an engineering firm and local architect from Fort Collins, VFLA. They have really good experience with airport projects, including the Otterbox Blue Ocean Corporate Flight Center. We are targeting an approximate 30,000 square foot facility. This is just an FAA recommendation that came out of our results of our airport master planning process. The airport master plan did create a functional layout of the facility. So we do have a picture here, but it's very conceptual in nature, just outlining some of the space requirements and space needs an airport our size would need, utilizing and supporting the aircraft that we're forecasted to currently and future support. So we're really targeting a conceptual design to be ready by early next year that we can use to determine whether or not we're going to move forward with the actual construction piece, where construction could begin as early as 2022 and be complete by 2024. Obviously, a very exciting opportunity that we have with the federal funding that we were able to get through the CARES Act, in addition to other resources. We're also working to create a world-class facility that really paints the picture of Northern Colorado as you arrive to the airport, a welcoming and highly appointed facility versus what we have currently. So that's something that we're really excited about, and we do have some interest from outside. Right now the pandemic has created a situation with air carriers to really reel in some of their service offerings, not focusing on new routes and or new destinations rather. So right now we're kind of in a holding pattern with the possibility of air service, but as the demand continues, I know that there's no alternative right now to air travel, and it's something that we'll see a significant need for here in Northern Colorado for not only now, but in the future as well. So, excited about this potential, and really looking forward to participating in the design of this over the next year and a half, and ultimately construction if we decide to move that forward. And that's all I have for that item.
Thank you, Jason. And any questions from the council members? I just want to recognize that Emily Gargle has joined us as well. And did I see any hands? Okay, Kristen, please.
Yeah, so and maybe you said this, so I apologize, Jason, if I missed it, but will the $16 million, almost $17 million CARES money, will that cover the full cost of that facility?
Great question, and that's something that we won't know an answer to until we get into the conceptual design piece. Ultimately, we have a rough estimate of certain costs, and there's going to be multiple components. I failed to mention that we do have a $3 million project that's utilizing another source of money that will be focused on the air side of the new terminal, providing a ramp space for aircraft to park, where this terminal facility is planned to be constructed. So there's other resources that are being applied to this, but I think that having what the airport visions and what the city's values are, it may need a little bit more. We're looking at how we can resource that through a variety of possibilities, through other grants or through other means to get where a 30,000 or more square foot facility would be able to be constructed with all the amenities that some of the larger airports have available to them.
Sure. No, that sounds great. Yeah, obviously you'll keep us posted on what that looks like and what those needs might be, and as we have to look at additional funding potentially. But yeah, I mean it sounds like it makes sense, and it's good to have those extra dollars and for that purpose. So I guess we'll just stay tuned and see what that looks like. It looks like we're still about the conception. So maybe several months away from the conceptual design. Is that right?
That's correct. We're hopeful that we'll have something first quarter, mid to late first quarter of next year to be able to share with the cities on the concept and what we're able to come out with. Just a preliminary design footprint and just an estimated cost, which we haven't gotten to yet.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Other council members? Yeah, Jackie?
Yeah, I assume that we're hiring a design firm, somebody to help design the terminal. Would it be possible to get their portfolio to see examples of other designs that they've done?
We do have a design firm. It's VFLA Architects, and they have a portfolio of multiple buildings throughout northern Colorado that I'd be happy to share with the city councils.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
Jason, I might just also mention that if you go to their website, they have some great pictures of the previous projects they've worked on.
What is that, Aaron? The website?
VFLA. Let me see. I don't know what the exact.
It's VFLA.com.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Don?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Troxel. I think the challenge here is we can build anything and we can spend whatever we want to build whatever we want. The challenge is to be as efficient as possible in incorporating energy saving construction as well as designing a facility that's going to last us for decades. One of the things that really excites me about the opportunity to build this terminal is we're going to be able to consider how we can include customs into this terminal. It's additional services, which would be a serious consideration for attracting primary employers. So I know the board is looking at this. We've talked about it a number of times, and this is the opportunity to incorporate that service so we become an additional, like you might say, check off the box. Can Northern Colorado provide customs, or do we have to stop in Casper, things of this nature? So this is a real opportunity, and looking beyond just the building, it's looking upon the functionality of the building for the next 2 or 3 decades. So commend you, Jason, for the work that you've done. And I look forward to working the board in order to bring this to accomplishment in the next couple of years. So thank you.
Thank you, Don. Other comments? Okay, Robert, Bob Malloy.
I don't know what if my opinion is worth 2 cents or not, but I work for VFR or VF Ripley. Bought Fry back in up to 2008 for 3 years, and I think they did a tremendous job. They got a lot of projects within the area, but they've also worked, a lot of projects within the region, and so I give them the thumbs up.
Thank you, Rob, for the recommendation or the support for that. Okay, Jack.
2 cents. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I want to stress the importance that this airport is an opportunity to be a first impression for people traveling to northern Colorado. So it does need to be exciting, and it does need to tell the story. about high technology, about tourism, about all the great outdoors, about the art community, the music that we have. So I'm very interested in the design aspect, that people, when they land here, they're excited. A lot of the corridors in our area are not great first impressions. If you're coming up 287 from the south, it's not pretty. Some parts of 34 aren't. This is an opportunity to set in people's mind that this is an innovative, creative, exciting place to be. So I want that first when they get off the plane, when they're approaching the airport, to say, wow, Northern Colorado. The excitement that we heard in the police training facility a few minutes ago, I want that for this. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Jackie. Other counselors or council members? Thank you, Jason, for that. And let's go on to our final item on our agenda tonight, the airport master plan update. And this will be coming to councils for an approval. Right, Jason? You'll put all that into context.
Mr. Mayor, and thank you. Thank you for keeping us on time. You're right, spot on right now. So, and I know that there's a football game on too, so I hope nobody's a Cowboys fan. They don't get to watch their team. Anyway, just wanted to kind of kick off. This is really the meat and potatoes of what I want to discuss and share information on today, even though we have a lot of other exciting things. This airport master plan study has been something that has been a multi-year planning exercise for us at the airport and our consultants with Mead and Hunt, who do a lot of aviation consulting and planning work throughout the country at many other airports. Just want to kind of provide a brief background, and then I'll introduce our consultant partner who's been helping us with a lot of the components of this. And we're really excited about reaching that light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. We started this project in November of 2018, where, typical airport master plan projects will take about 18 to 24 months. We're kind of reaching that threshold of 24 months. And, a lot of it has to do with us being almost done in April and the pandemic setting in, creating the need for us to kind of go backwards to go forwards again on our planning efforts, especially as it relates to some of the funding that's been received this year and some of the priorities that have changed around on us multiple times. Our capital improvement plan for the airport, we've just approved last week at the Airport Commission version 3.0 of something that typically is only an annual thing. So to be nimble and make sure that we're doing what we can to kind of maximize our funding dollars, in addition to understanding where things may be placed in the future and how the airport will evolve over time, are really important things. And as we go through this effort and get to the final stages, I want to just kind of stress that we've done everything that we can to really focus on some of the challenges that we've seen in 2020 on implementation, especially for this plan moving forward. So just a brief bit of background. The Airport Master Plan is something that was last updated in 2007. It was something that took from about 2004 to 2007 to create and finally get approved. We as an airport will receive and update master plans every 10 to 15 years in accordance to FAA requirements and recommendations. And what this is used for is to really program the needs for future funding at the airport, in addition to understanding some of the complexity that the airport will have to accommodate in the future from a planning point of view, from a forecasting, modeling, and also understanding how the area that surrounds it can be developed in a way that truly supports the airport sustainability. So planning is really needed to also identify ways that the airport should be built rather than kind of that path of least resistance. So having a solid plan really helps us get to where we need to be and create some of that vision that the both cities that own and operate the airport have. So I would like to introduce Ryan Hayes from Mead and Hunt, who's going to kind of pull us through this. And Ryan, did you want to put your own slide deck on, or do you want me to drive?
I'm fine if you want to drive it,
Okay.
Jason, and I can just tell you next slide if you don't mind.
You bet. Happy to do that. So Ryan Hayes is been with us for 2 years from Mead and Hunt. They do a lot of planning efforts throughout the country for a variety of airports, big and small. And Ryan and his team have been great to work with. And we believe that we have a very solid plan, a very solid foundation for what we see as the next 10 to 15 years here at the airport. So Ryan, if you don't mind.
Yes, thank you, Jason, and mayors and council members. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. I recognize this is a full agenda. So I've got about 30 slides I'm going to go through in a fairly expedient manner and hit all the high points of the master plan that we are in the completion stages of. But certainly, if we need to come back to any slides to answer any questions, we can absolutely do that. So Jason, if you go to the next slide, I've got an agenda. I'm going to talk a little bit about what a master plan is and also mention a little bit about what a master plan is not. That's often a confusion point for some folks. So I want to clarify that. We'll talk a little bit about the process and then get into the actual chapters and recommendations of the master plan. And then finally share with you the stakeholder and public outreach that we've conducted as part of this planning process, and then obviously answer your questions. Next slide, Jason. So I do want to mention that this is not a consultant prepared master plan. We do write the document and we do organize all the thoughts and the recommendations, but this is very much a team effort. It's been our pleasure to work with your airport staff. Jason and his team at the airport are tremendous. It's also been our pleasure to work with the Airport Commission and particularly the Planning and Development Subcommittee of the Airport Commission. We've met with these folks multiple times over the past 2 years, and their input has been very valuable. Mead and Hunt, we are airport planners. We're the lead consultant on the project, but we also had 4 specialty sub-consultant firms. One firm that did some land use planning work for off-airport land use recommendations. Another firm that specialized in general aviation industry analysis. A firm that helped us with the financial analysis for the master plan, and then a survey firm. So I want to give those firms some credit too. This was not all Mead and Hunt, but okay, Jason, if you go to the next slide and then just flip, that's kind of a cover slide, and flip to the next one. So an airport master plan is it's a very similar planning process to any planning process for a public facility. It's similar to a parks master plan. It's very much a decision-making tool that can help guide orderly development of future airport facilities. So it informs management and operating policies at the airport, the layout of facilities, identifies space for future airport development. It's also a tool that provides the FAA with some important information. The FAA pays for 90% of this planning process through an airport improvement program grant to the airport. And what the FAA gets out of this process is they understand that the airport is laid out in accordance with their safety standards. And they also get a sneak peek or a preview into what the airport plans to build over the next 20 years. And it helps them in programming funding for those potential projects. The airport master plan is not a business plan. So while we do have a goal of making the capital program financially self-sustaining and feasible, it's not a business plan for the airport per se. It's also not a strategic plan. The Northern Colorado Regional Airport and Jason and his team undertook a very comprehensive strategic planning process prior to starting this master plan process. We've incorporated all of those recommendations and goals of the strategic plan, but this is not a strategic planning process. It's also not a noise study, although we do take into account the potential for noise impacts and how the noise environment might change with some of the recommendations. So those are a couple of things that the airport master planning process is not, but it really is a physical development plan that reserve space for potentially needed facilities. And that's what we think we've produced. The ultimate output of the airport master plan is shown on this slide that Jason has just flipped to. This was the conceptual development plan that came out of the 2007 master plan. So this is the output. This is a one sheet piece of paper that shows all existing facilities and all future facilities. And when we get to the end of the slideshow, I'll show you what the new version of this concept plan looks like for the Northern Colorado Regional Airport. A little bit about the process. We created this process chart to break the planning process into 4 phases: the pre-planning phase, the investigation phase, the solutions phase, and then finally the implementation phase. You can also see along the bottom of this chart, public outreach is conducted throughout the planning process. We meet with both, as I mentioned, the Planning and Development Subcommittee of the Airport Commission multiple times, and we also conducted 3 public open houses, the last one being conducted this summer via Zoom due to the pandemic. But 3 open houses is a lot. It's more than we typically do for an airport of this size. But Jason and the Airport Commission really wanted us to get the message out there that this planning process was happening and that folks were allowed to comment. And so we've had a website running the entire time. We've been taking comments via the website and really did a significant effort to get this planning process out there in front of the community. Next slide. Some of the key planning considerations were, I mentioned the strategic plan that happened before we started this. We incorporated all of those statements and goals. We did public outreach. We took a look at all FAA safety criteria and made sure the airport was in compliance with FAA standards. Incorporating the needs of the remote tower program was important. Forecasting aviation activity and the potential for return to commercial service was a consideration, as well as collecting data, doing some on-airport land use planning, but also some off-airport land use planning, specifically in an area that we've defined as the airport influence area, which is land that surrounds the airport that has the potential to either be impacted by noise or by overflight of aircraft. And I'll show you a map of what that airport influence area looks like. And then obviously financial planning. We want to produce a plan, a physical development plan for the airport that is financially feasible. So these next few slides go into the details and the specific chapters. We start the planning process with an inventory of the airport. That's what's shown on this map here. We do not, on the west side of the airport, we don't show the police training campus yet, as when we produced this inventory map, that facility was not under construction yet. But for orientation purposes, the primary runway at the airport is runway 1533, and it's roughly oriented north-south. The airport also has a crosswind runway, runway 624, that is roughly oriented east-west. And you can see I-25 on the right side of this map. So that kind of gives you an idea of where the airport's at. We go through an inventory process. We define all the facilities that exist on airport within the bounds of airport property. And we also inventory the land use and zoning and the airport environs. Next slide. We then forecast aviation activity. So what demand do we expect to be placed on this airport from both a general aviation standpoint and a commercial service standpoint in the future? And we quantify that in both commercial operations and passenger enplanements, or commercial passengers boarding an aircraft. So our forecasts do anticipate return of commercial service to this airport in the very near future. And those numbers were shared with the FAA and approved by the FAA. Next slide, Jason. So then we take those forecasts and we decide what facilities do we need on the airfield to accommodate that forecast demand. And we start that analysis with a look at the critical aircraft. What's the largest and fastest aircraft that's going to be placing demand on these facilities? And that's anticipated to be at the bottom of this chart on the right. You see a narrow body Airbus A320 That's very similar size to Boeing's 737 line of aircraft. That's essentially the size of aircraft that the primary runway and most of the landside facilities will be designed to accommodate. Next slide. We also, that information also informs FAA safety setbacks and criteria and protection zones. You can see these yellow trapezoidal shaped zones located off of the end of each runway. Those are based on that critical aircraft size and also based on the instrument approach capabilities that exist at the airport. So the master plan makes recommendations for some of these physical runways, taxiways, and safety setback areas as well. Next slide. This is some fairly highly technical information, to be quite honest, but we included this information in the presentation we did at the last open house, primarily because we got some questions about it from some airport stakeholders, and they wanted to know, what's the capacity of the airfield? Do we have to build more runways in the future? And the answer is not likely in the next 20 years, but very near the outside of the 20-year planning window, another runway may be needed at this airport. So that was a good question. We also got questions about wind analysis and how are runways oriented, and runways are lined up with the prevailing winds. And that's an important consideration for airport planning. Next slide. Then we take a look at what facilities do we need on the land side. We need hangars and apron for aircraft parking. What demand are we going to have at this airport for non-aeronautical development, and how much space do we reserve for that? We need to incorporate the potential remote tower facilities and maybe a permanent remote tower building on the airfield. We take a look at circulation and access and also vehicle parking on the airport property. And then we also have passenger terminal requirements. So you all talked a lot already about the potential for a new terminal, and we defined the space requirements in terms of how many square feet does this building need to be. And as Jason mentioned earlier, we recommend, the master plan is recommending about a 30,000 square foot terminal with about 2 gates to accommodate potentially up to 2 air carriers, but we also recommended that facility be designed in a way that is easily expandable. It's entirely possible that commercial service returns and things are much more successful than our forecasts indicate, and the building may need to be expanded in the near future after it opens. So flexibility is an important component that we build into this master plan. Next slide, Jason. So we take all that facility requirements data, and then we develop alternatives for how we can potentially accommodate all that demand within the airport property line. And we have some goals that we carry into the alternatives process, including providing direction for future development, again, facilitating those strategic plan goals. One of those goals that this airport has is to be a center for innovation. So we want to reserve space for emerging technologies in the aviation industry that might have a home, a future home at the Northern Colorado Regional Airport. We want to encourage investment in the airport, both public investment, like the police training campus, in addition to private investment, private hangars, that type of thing. We want the airport to be self-sufficient. We don't want to recommend projects that the airport can't pay for. And we want to consider the aircraft operational requirements that the airport has, and again, emerging technologies such as electric aircraft. And, you know, what does that mean from a reservation of space for fueling facilities versus electric charging stations? That's an important consideration. Maximizing airport access and approach capabilities, and then making sure that the airport is planned in a way that's environmentally compatible. Those are some of the goals. We also have some assumptions that we carry into the alternatives process. One, which is we must design this airport in a way that meets FAA standards, of course. We want to accommodate the return of commercial service as best as we can. We took a look at the design aircraft and the largest and critical aircraft. We had assumptions related to runway approach, length, and width requirements. Also assumptions related to efficient targeted development on the land side. There's only so much space available for development at this airport, and we want to reserve space for the highest and best uses, if you will, of airport property. Another assumption we carried into the alternatives was that the continued use of runway 624. There was talk years ago about the potential to close that runway. We've had an assumption in this master plan that we're going to continue to operate that facility as a runway. The air carrier passenger terminal requirements and the remote tower requirements are also assumptions that we took into the alternatives. So the next few slides show you some of our airfield recommendations and also our landside recommendations. So the existing pavement, and it's kind of hard to see on this graphic, but it is shown in light gray, and the dark gray is potentially future pavement. So we're recommending a reservation of space for a runway extension to the south, about 1,000 feet of additional runway to the primary runway. We're also recommending a second parallel runway to be located west of the primary runway. I did mention earlier that runway is not foreseen to be needed in the next 20 years, but it's still important to show that runway on the airport layout plan so that when it is needed, the space is available to construct it. So those are some of the airfield recommendations. The next slide shows on the land side, our conceptual functional layout for a potential terminal building. And again, this is based on our recommendation of a roughly 30,000 square foot 2-gate terminal building, and how the spaces might be laid out, where TSA might be located. As Jason mentioned, when the architectural design firm is going to come up with their own layout that may look somewhat similar to this, and it may look entirely different. So that was a component of the master plan, though. We take all of that information and we put it on that one sheet of paper, which really, as I mentioned, is the output of the planning process. And we call that the conceptual development plan for the airport master plan. And this is what that updated conceptual development plan looks like. For orientation purposes, north is to the left on this map. You can see the primary runway in the middle, and the police training campus that we talked about at the beginning of the meeting tonight on the west side of the airport. And then most of the facilities, most of the general aviation and commercial aviation facilities then are located to the east of the primary runway of runway 1533. So that is the concept. And then we take that information and we look at breaking it out into individual projects, doing cost estimates on those projects, and then developing an implementation plan for how we can pay for those projects. So next slide, Jason. This next slide focuses on a summary of that financial planning process. So you'll see there's $220 million worth of projects. That's an escalated number. The number in 2019 dollars was, I believe, about 175 million, Jason. And this $220 million is then an escalated estimate of how much those projects are going to cost based on an escalation factor in the year that we think each of those projects are going to happen. The other thing that's important on this slide is, and we've talked about it again tonight, the CARES Act and the potential grant from the CARES Act really makes the short-term financial plan for this airport feasible. It results in no funding shortfall in the first 5 years. In the medium term and long term, we do have some identified funding shortfalls, but those are based on either the need to expand the terminal or the need to build a significant amount of general aviation facilities that likely exceed the demand that is included in our forecasts. Jason, anything you want to mention on the financial implementation?
I think it's important just to point out that this is what has really taken some focus here in the last few months, is to incorporate funding that we received from the CARES Act, as you mentioned there, and incorporating that into the bottom line, and really kind of focused on how that 5-year plan looks and what our funding levels are you can see that the funding shortfall there is, we're planning on, having no funding shortfall as it relates to some of that planning that we're doing. However, as I mentioned, the terminal building and a lot of the land side components could push that up a little bit, but for the most part, all of our needs are being met in the short term from a financial point of view. Looking at it from a long-term point of view, there are a lot of maintenance needs and also needs that we have moving forward in the short and midterm that really focus on private third-party funding. So that's building hangars, and some of that's been illustrated there as it relates to what the airport just is planning for from the private sector for investments. So we didn't capture that, I believe, in the last airport master plan, but it's something that's new that we did capture this time, just to show how much is being invested in airport facilities and infrastructure primarily, not necessarily the buildings themselves, but the infrastructure, meaning the terminal, parking, the taxiways, and aircraft parking aprons as well.
Thank you, Jason. And the one other thing I would add on this slide is it's not unusual that the needs of an airport exceed the funding sources available. And the comment about Jason finding the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, Jason has left no stone unturned to find to identify every potential source for funding capital improvements at this airport. And you can see the long list of funding sources that we have on the left side of this chart. And these really are important projects at the airport, and so finding ways to pay for them, and particularly with grant funding and other creative funding sources is very important, and something that we wanted to capture in this master planning process. The next three slides just use a color coding system to show you where the projects in each of the three phases that we've identified, the short-term, medium-term, and long-term phases, are likely to happen on the airport. You'll see a lot of the colors trace existing pavement, and as Jason mentioned, that's because it's a maintenance project. Each of these pieces of pavement needs both routine and major maintenance in various years, and so a lot of the projects identified in the master plan are maintenance and rehabilitation related. But there's also some projects that are new pavement or new facilities on the airport as well. One of the unique components that we incorporated into this planning process was an analysis of what's called the airport influence area. And the reason we included this is we recognize that once an aircraft lifts off, once its wheels lift off the pavement, the airport has no control over what flight tracks that airport or that aircraft flies, or how high or how low that aircraft flies. It's completely under the purview of the FAA and their airspace regulations. So there's only so much that the airport can do from a noise standpoint, recognizing that aircraft make noise, and that can be an annoyance to the community. What Jason and the Airport Commission asked us to scope into this master plan was analysis of land use in the areas surrounding the airport. How can we analyze this land use, determine how much open space there is, and what is the potential for development in that open space in ways that are compatible with the airport? So this map on the right of the slide shows the airport influence area. This is based on both the noise contours that the airport generates, as well as the flight tracks and flight patterns that the airport flies. There's about 2,500 acres in this airport influence area. The influence area is much more than that. 2,500 acres is currently developed, and that's about 27% of the airport influence area. So the developed areas are shown in white. The undeveloped areas are shown in this, I guess it's orange pinkish color. But so there's the message is there's quite a bit of undeveloped land within the airport influence area, and the airport has a vested interest in seeing that land be developed in ways that are compatible with the airport. Land uses that are not normally compatible within an airport influence area are primarily residential land uses, schools, churches, other noise sensitive land uses. So I mentioned that we had a sub-consultant that specializes in land use analysis help us prepare this this report, and this is all Appendix B of the master plan. If you, for those council members who, I understand the master plan is a very thick document and you probably don't want to read the whole thing, but if there is an important appendix that I would recommend you read, it's Appendix B to the master plan, and that's where all of this airport influence area analysis is included. Next slide, Jason. We did a real estate and market analysis on the land use within the airport influence area. And obviously people are moving to Northern Colorado. This is nothing, I'm not telling you council members anything you don't already know. There's high demand for residential development, and there's high demand for residential development within the airport influence area. That is absolutely true. But there's also demand for other potential land uses like industrial, office, retail, and hotel. And so we kind of quantified that prior to 2000, what it's looked like in the last 20 years, and how this land has, what's been developed within the airport influence area in the last 20 years is then quantified in this table. Hotel development has been strong, and demand for hotel activity has been strong in this area. But there is also high demand for residential, and so that's a concern of the airport moving forward. Next slide, Jason. We also talked a lot with the Planning and Development Subcommittee about what is the potential for areas surrounding the airport to be developed for research and technology parks or innovation districts. The good news is there's excellent accessibility to transportation links, the airport being one transportation link, railroads and highways being other transportation links. There's high quality technology infrastructure in this area. There's the bell cow of the educational and collegiate institutions that exist in this area. So there's we do see a very high potential for research and technology type of development within the airport influence area. Next slide, Jason. This next slide focuses again on residential development. So the blue dots indicate either single family development that's under construction or recently constructed, and the yellow dots indicate multifamily residential development that's either under construction or has been constructed recently. It's kind of hard to see the airport, but the airport is right in the middle of this map, and quite a bit of this development is happening on the edge of the airport influence area, which is good. The closer that this development happens to the airport, the more concerning it is from an airport compatibility standpoint. So just the airport influence area appendix concludes with some recommendations, and those are primarily to develop an implementation plan that lays the groundwork for successful research and technology parks. Really take advantage of the innovation momentum in this part of the state. Encourage a long-term competitive functioning land market within the airport influence area. Proactively plan for a thriving mixed-use environment that is hopefully compatible with normal airport operations, and maintain vigilance in protecting the airport from encroachment by incompatible land uses. And again, that's primarily residential development. So I know that's a lot of information and a lot of slides on that subject, but Jason and I wanted you all to be aware that we had done this work, and certainly invite you to review it. The last couple slides I wanted to mention are just about our stakeholder and public outreach. Again, a ton of credit goes to all the folks on the Planning and Development Subcommittee. This group served as our technical review group. They were essentially our sounding board. We prepared chapters, and this group commented on them in detail and gave us some really good feedback. So appreciate their involvement. We also did a number of stakeholder meetings. Examples of these would include meeting with the Pilots Association, meeting with the planning commissions at both cities, as well as the Planning Commission for Larimer County. We conducted 3 public open houses, and we had a number of financial planning meetings over the course of 2020 as we prepared the implementation plan. Again, this is just a little bit more information about how we shared the master planning process. The website was our primary tool. We had frequently asked questions on there. We had all the reports and chapters. We had project updates, open house materials. The airport utilized their social media channels to get the information out. And I really don't think we did this planning process in a vacuum. I think residents of the community were aware that this planning process was happening. Some of the feedback we got is included on the next slide, or a generalized grouping of the public comments that we received. So the number one comment that we received during the public outreach process was related to airline service. Folks want to know when air service is coming back, what airlines, more information on that. So we got a lot of comments on airline service. We got a lot of comments on what's the gray here, Jason? Oh, the terminal building. So in addition to air service, we got a lot of questions about what's the terminal going to look like? What's the schedule for constructing a terminal? How big is it going to be? How many gates? That type of information. Then the blue in this pie chart is noise. Noise was another topic that we received a lot of comments about, and those were really the 3 primary areas of interest that we heard about from the public. And that is the end of our presentation. Again, I apologize for the length, but as Jason mentioned, this was a 2-year planning process, and we're very proud of the master plan that has come out of this planning process, and I hope you all are too. You should be very proud of this facility. You should be proud of your airport staff and the good work that they're doing, and you've heard about here tonight. So
Thank you, Brian.
questions?
Appreciate it. And with that, and you mentioned this, Ryan, but just pointing to the Planning and Development Subcommittee and chaired by Tom Fleming, they've been a great addition to the commission, where a lot of work gets done between meetings, and so I think that's been one of the reasons we've been able to do more as a commission with the subcommittee. So thank you to Chair Tom Fleming. So with that, who would like to ask some questions? Okay, Darren, please.
Yeah, wait, thank you. Just real quickly, Ryan, when you mentioned that the previous slide about comments from the community about airline service,
Yes.
did you differentiate between, hey, bring it on, I'm looking forward to it, versus, oh gosh, I'm concerned about noise and safety and things like that? How did those play out?
Yeah, that's a good point. We had comments on both sides. We had folks that are concerned about larger aircraft and air service, and this airport, we had questions like, is this airport going to become DIA North? And the response was no, that there's going to be a small amount of commercial service at this airport, just as there always has been in the past, but it's not going to be primarily a commercial service airport. It's going to be an airport that serves both general aviation and commercial service. And then we also had a lot of questions about, we can't wait for airline service to return. We're tired of driving to DIA for all of the reasons that you all know about, and we can't wait to get on an airplane and fly to Las Vegas again. So we had both comments.
And,
both
and
sides.
Darren, we quantified that in a way that, kind of lumped the concerns where the noise piece was of the pie and the positive, encouraging remarks of trying to get air service back on the airline side.
Got it. Thanks. The other thing, Ryan and Jason, I want to kind of pile on with just the kudos and compliments. Ryan, thanks for you and the team and the work of everyone. It's been great. And Jason, all the accolades around, the pot of gold and those sorts of things, and just the stick-to-itiveness. You've been pretty amazing at those elements, and I've been on the board for a long time, and I'm really grateful for that. One of the things that I think the councils ought to be aware of, we've been, this year in particular, we've been very, very successful in getting money for capital, for terminals, for remote, those sorts of remote towers, things like that. I think I speak for most of the commissioners that likewise we should be focusing on the standards at the airport as well from a design standpoint. I think Mayor Marsh talked about that earlier, but making sure with all these capital investments that we're upping the game in terms of the quality of the airport facilities as well. And if we want it to be the front door or the living room and those sorts of things, sometimes that quality and those quality design standards mean that there needs to be local resources put into it as well. And so all the paving that's gone on and concrete work and the remote tower and the soon to be terminal and those sorts of things, if we don't do some of these public facing facilities and amenity improvements and things to a very high quality level, then I think we're missing out. And I think, I guess I just feel like we should just say that to both councils and to the commissioners that we don't want to build average out there. And so that's just we're having that discussion now. What is the standard? What do building facades look like? What does our terminal look like? Those sorts of things. And we could be making some 50 to 100-year decisions, and we want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that truly is our living room and front door. So that's all I had. Thanks, Mayor. And Jason, I appreciate your leadership and what you're doing.
Thank you, Darren.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. And thanks for pointing out about the conversation that we're having with regards to standards and zoning, both inside the fence and outside the fence. Steve Adams mentioned at our last meeting last week, as we think about outside the fence, it's zoned industrial, but, with projects like Brands West and so forth, if we could extend some of that standard really to the entrance and the gateways to the airport and thinking about the how one arrives at the airport and with landscaping and appropriate monuments identifying where one is and arriving at the new terminal, and with projects with regards to what Discovery Air is in line to do and so forth. I think those are things that we can be doing as the commissioners, as with the two cities, in really making this place a special that it speaks that all the way through. So thank you, Darren, for bringing that up. Other comments? Don, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Troxel. The master plan, as it was mentioned, is not a business plan, but we've had conversations, and just this last week, we discussed economic development around the airport. And, Loveland is in a situation that we're looking to grow our primary employers. We have the space and we have the opportunity to benefit of that, and utilizing the airport around that it benefits the entire Northern Colorado region. We're not as landlocked as some communities are. And this airport's a real asset for us. And I know Kelly Jones has been involved and in touch with Joshua Burks regarding this topic, and we touched on it lightly last week in our meeting. And I think that's, again, looking at the future, how do we utilize this airport to benefit the attraction of primary employers to the Northern Colorado region, which benefits Larimer and Weld County by bringing these people close to us. So I'm just really pleased to be part of the commission, knowing that there's that focus, and we're not just trying to do business as usual. And we get a few good things from the FAA, but we're looking at really making a difference there. So I think as our two communities can work together, whether it's around the design standards, which of course attracts primary employers. Who wants to come to some place that looks, like it's living in the dark ages? So I think all those things are good as long as we're focused on what are we trying to accomplish. And I really think that serving our community, but serving our primary employers is a real asset this airport can bring to us and to the entire region. So I appreciate that our communities are working together on this, and compliment Jason again for being able to find some of those resources to really put us in position now to really be a competitor to other areas of Colorado. I think that's really what this, the CARES Act, the windfall we got there, this puts us in position to really accelerate our ability to deliver for Northern Colorado. And so I appreciate the time that has been spent tonight in discussing this entire topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. And I would just like to recognize Commissioner Scootsbury on this matter where he has his business there, and he's really been articulately pointing out that we need to be strategic with regards to the asset that we have. And I think his comments have been consistent, and I think that's very much in line with just what Commissioner Overcash just mentioned as well. So, I think we have a great opportunity at the airport, and thinking of the economic influence area as much as just the inside the fence takeoff and landings component of the airport as well. And we really have a tremendous asset that I think the strategic airport master plan and other efforts going on really align with that. Kristen, and then Jerry.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the presentation. One of the questions I have when we talk about this area possibly being a research and technology park and involving universities, what kind of outreach or what kind of work have we done with CSU and or Front Range around this space, and what kind of things do we see for the future with those two institutions?
So I'll take that if I can, Mayor. We've been, as part of our strategic plan, focused on education, and one of the or a few of the things that we've been working on are pathway programs to aviation type professional track programs with the emerging UAS market. CSU, their drone center has gone out to the Crispin Airfield there just west of town, and we work with them quite regularly as an airport together on different types of projects and interaction between us on how we might be able to capture not only from the educational aspect but also the economic development opportunities that could arise from that. Ames Community College is a new entrant to the airport and user. They have a lot of programs involved with the professional pilot training, in addition to something that is a little bit unique, but it's air traffic control, which really dovetails nicely with our remote air traffic control tower project, in addition to also a newly formed UAS program. They have partnerships right now with the Poudre School District on some pathway programs going into some of their UAS training and eventually their professional pilot training. St. Vrain School District is also integrated with that. We've had some pretty good discussions involving Front Range. They don't have any specific aviation programs right now, but they've been included in the conversation as well. And we're working with Ames on the potential for some vocational training, such as aircraft maintenance and those types of things to expand their program offering, because they're seeing a lot of success, and not only that, but there's also a significant demand in aviation trained workforce, and pilots, mechanics, and air traffic controllers are all in very high demand still, and something that we think is a tremendous opportunity, and something that we're working to capture as part of some of our strategic efforts. So yeah, thank you for that question. It's a good one.
And I'd just like to add that tomorrow night we're doing a proclamation at Fort Collins for Aerospace Alley. Colorado is second only to Texas as relates to aerospace industries and companies. And a lot of it in Colorado tends to center around Colorado Springs and recently announced Space Force and then South Metro Denver. And we're actively being involved in this Aerospace Alley initiative, which coming out of the Wings Over the Rockies and really playing a role that aerospace really extends up to Northern Colorado Regional Airport. And there are a number of companies around Northern Colorado Regional Airport, including Jim Sampson's company, which does composite materials, and I believe George By is he still on the airport grounds doing his electric airplane, Jason?
He's done some testing here and continues to have a smaller presence here. He's got a tremendous focus down in Centennial with the electric airplane, and we're still working with them on the potential of becoming one of their first charging stations for that electric airplane in the near future.
Right, and I know in Northern Colorado there's also UQM, or the old Unique Mobility, which electric motors and things that play into aircraft. And again, I'll point to Jerry Scootsbury, and his business really plays an active role in avionics as it relates to the industry, and a number of other companies as well that we play well. And I think by just shining more of a focused lens on our airport, I think it's an opportunity that we have. So Jerry, did you? Oh, you're muted, Jerry.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to follow up quickly on what Mayor Marsh said, and then also Darren, with respect to the first impression nature of the terminal and the amount of work that needs to happen landside in that regard. So I'd like to ask all of the council people, thank you very much for your time tonight. Drive out to the airport. And as you're driving out there, think about curb appeal. Think about ease of access. Think about the infrastructure that is or isn't there. And as we pointed out, as has been pointed out during this presentation tonight, we've done a really good job of getting the federal and state money that's out there to be had. And as Jason will tell you, that money can't go to these things that we're talking about and what Darren is mentioning, both for standards for the buildings and for the entranceways, as well as the road and the infrastructure that leads to the airport. That's going to be on us, as far as I understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong. And basically, also remember one other note that I made here is we're also talking about the county at some point too on the north side of the airport. I would assume that would involve county, since it's not currently under any of the cities. You folks would know more about that than I would. So thank you.
Yeah, Jason, and then Steve.
Just wanted to follow up with Jerry's comment. Jerry's spot on. A lot of the funding that we receive as an airport is primarily for the air side. It's for the runways. It's for the taxiways. Those are very costly to operate and maintain. And we're fortunate to be able to go out to the FAA and other sources to find that funding that's required for the safety aspect of keeping the airport functional, operating, and also compliance, and also looking at how we can accommodate current and future demand. So the funding that we receive is a very low priority for the FAA and the state when we go outside of that fence, if you will. From the air side to the land side for roads, for infrastructure, for what we need to really facilitate our image and also future growth. So I just wanted to point that out, that Jerry is absolutely correct, in his statement there on finding that resource to kind of elevate the airport and look at how our vision and how we're visible and what that impression looks like as we come in and some of our visitors come into the Northern Colorado region.
And I would just add, we had a great conversation at our last commission meeting with regards to that. Has it been our low standards that have kept the investment away, or if we lift the standards as to what is outside the fence, would that attract investment to the airport? And what I heard coming out of that discussion was the latter. We need to raise the standards such that the investment will come to that development. And with that is the subsequent public dollars that enable the roadways and curb and gutter and that kind of infrastructure to that. So, I think part of it is not just looking at the dollars, yes, and we actually need to raise the standards that attracts the kind of dollars. I just point to the Blue Ocean Aviation Building, to attract those dollars inside the fence is a lifting of the standards inside the fence as much as outside the fence. And so, and do they all need to be corporate operations? No, but to get to Jerry's point about curb appeal and approach and a place that you've arrived at someplace special. That's I think that's what we're talking about. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor / Chair. We wanted to talk about a couple things. First, I did want to echo some of the comments about Jason and what he's been doing and able to pull together. One of the things that he has been focused on, because we realize that even though we have 3D printing, we can't print more of Jason's. And so at some point in time, we're going to need to have some additional staff and resources at this airport as things grow, particularly to match into some of the discussions we've had this evening on different parts. And so that's one other area that we'll be looking at to have some help. The other part of this is partnerships. And I think this is where we turn to our counselors in both communities and the connections that they may have, because if you saw in the 5-year plan, there was third-party monies bringing to the table. And so our goal, I think, if the standards are changed and reflect a higher level of commitment to our community, that also we may be able to be more successful in going out to our communities and regionally to see if there are others who might want to name the airport or work on some particular part of that and receive some recognition for that as we receive the benefit of a little bit more money to make this airport more of what we're looking for in terminal. The terminal may be done in phases. I think we can always look at that and say, if we can't afford it all right now, let's get done what we can and become operational and then grow into this airport more and design it that way. Also, I would like Jason to spend a few minutes about what I feel like one of the most important connections our airport has had in the last few years, and that's with UNC and what's happened there with their training program and how that was moved to our airport and what that means to us, to Mayor Pro Tem Stevens' point about how we've worked with education, because I think this is one of the biggest ones. I'm not allowed in Greeley anymore, by the way, but at least we can have some discussion about that, and Jason maybe could give a little bit more detailed update, but thank you.
Jason, can you talk about UNC?
It's, yeah, I believe Ames Community College that we kind of just made a quick conversation about. The Ames Community College program started operating here just over a year and about a month ago. So, very, very new addition to the airport. They have a fleet of 12 aircraft that they're one of only 2 FAA certified flight training facilities that provide full service pilot training to individuals that want to become professional pilots. And that's a differentiator for a lot of flight training schools, is that flight training, some folks want to use it for a hobby or recreation, but or possibly just to fly their own aircraft. But the Ames Community College program is strictly dedicated to professional aircraft flight training that will enable somebody that wants to become a professional pilot the means to do so, and all the hours and flight instruction needed to go from not a pilot to becoming an airline first officer. So They also provide not only that, but as I mentioned earlier, the air traffic control training. They're also an FAA certified school that provides flight training. Some of our controllers that are here actually right now controlling air traffic in our tower are also those college professors that are teaching the future air traffic controllers. So there's a lot of integration there, and we're really pleased with that new addition to the airfield, in addition to some of the offerings that Ames Community College provides to our local community and our local businesses as well.
And if I could add to that also, those air traffic controllers are excited to be here because we're the pilot program for a new kind of air traffic control system. And so by having that availability and having those seats available for future training as the phases of this work through the system, there has been discussion about in the future, once we're certified, of having that be part of the air traffic control training in the future. So this would be one of those airports that would be able to expose students to that and make them more marketable to FAA as they go out into the area.
Right. And I should also mention, and in full disclosure, it's in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, which I'm on the faculty, but mechanical engineering at Colorado State University has launched a aerospace engineering master's program, subsequently with a master's program as well. And that's for literally the state of Colorado. And there's 2 4-year degrees in aerospace engineering, one at UCU Boulder and one at Metro State, and Colorado State University is launching one as well. Other input, any more discussion? Yeah, please, Don.
Yeah, Mayor Troxel, I just wanted to follow up on a comment you made earlier about raising the standards. And I've been encouraged by the last several meetings that we've had as a commission that we've addressed that topic. And you've been very vocal and very supportive about elevating that. I really believe that our citizens are looking for leaders that have vision. They're tired of hearing about what's wrong in the past. They're tired about what we didn't accomplish 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And I think it's really important that these two councils and the commission can paint a vision for what we can be, the direction we're heading. And when we establish a level of standards, we're starting to paint a picture for people. I kind of like thinking vision. I need to see the picture. And we're by even talking about our standards, the way you mentioned the last couple of meetings, we're talking about the picture of the way things can be, rather than just dealing with the problems of the past. And I think really in the position that our society and culture is in right now, this is really critical for our council members to be able to, and our commission, to be able to provide. And we're at such a critical point with our airport. We have the opportunity to take this to a totally different level than what's envisioned in the past. It's time to vision for the future. Yes, air traffic's changing, the economy's changing, the market's changing, but that's an opportunity for us to step in and do that. So I appreciate your comments. It really started with just talking about a design plan, but you were able to start articulating that with us. And I appreciate that, because it's really caused me to stop and think about the next 10 to next 20 years of what we can do with this airport. We have a unique opportunity, and we have the city managers in place to help make that happen. They're used to working together. They're used to working to combining our staffs and our pools in order to get things done versus reasons why we can't do things. So I appreciate your leadership on the commission, and I really encourage our councils and our city managers to find ways. Let's move this forward and quit being encumbered by the past. It's time to look to the future. So thank you, Mayor Troxel. I do appreciate that sincerely.
Well, thank you very much, Don. And I do think we have a great opportunity. I think we have a great commission as well that is working with us on this. And thank you all. I appreciate that. Thanks, Don. Any other comments? And Andrea, we like the future aerospace engineer on your lap.
Thank you. I'll put my microphone on. Thank
That's
you.
okay. Jason.
Mayor, I just wanted to thank you and the rest of the Airport Commission and the City Council tonight for listening to all the great things that are happening at the airport, and it certainly could not have been done without the leadership of our new Airport Commission. We've been organized since 2015, and over the last 5 years, I think have accomplished quite a bit. And want to give kudos to everybody that have been serving on that board and have really work to facilitate the change that's been happening, and really pushing our trajectory all in the same way. And I just want to close with one final comment, and that is any investment in the airport from the two cities is only 50 cents on the dollar. So I don't know why we wouldn't all be lining up to provide all that infrastructure support right away. So thank you all for your time tonight, and look forward to talking to you all at City Council in the future as we work to officially adopt the airport master plan here in November, is where we're going to be targeting some of the City Council action for adoption. So, thank you, Mayor.
You just saw the money man at work right there. 50 cents on the dollar. I love it.
That's where, yeah, John Fogel comes on. He likes that.
Oh, yeah. John will sell you a few cars to help you, Jason, or trucks.
Well, thank you. And I think I want to thank commissioners. Really, I think we're all speaking with one voice to lift the standards and really help support the moving forward with respect to the airport. And thank you for everything related to the airport master plan. And I'll just open it up. Is there any more for the good of the cause before we adjourn? Thank you, everybody. And I think we're just a little bit over, but Darren, did you have something?
I was waving goodbye.
Okay, that's it. That's the final word. Good night, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Good night.